Welcome in, listeners. This is Margin Mavens, a podcast hosted by Steph and Kayla, where we share our thoughts on all things literature. Today's episode is about Forbidden Fusion by Kelsey Leigh. Continuing the story of Rayleigh as she gets pulled into a world unknown. We're joined today by the author herself, and we can't wait to get straight into the juicy bits. As usual, the beginning portion of this episode will be spoiler-free, but you guys will get a warning when we are switching over. Now make sure to grab a snack and a drink unless you're driving, then remember 10 and 2, and come hang out with us while we dive in. So Kelsey, this is your first ever series, right?
Yes.
Like the Forbidden Flare was your debut and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What was that kind of process for you? I'm always really interested in the mechanic side of writing. So what does a normal writing process look for you?
So Forgotten Flare started with a assignment that I had in high school, and I think that most people know, but it was my teacher that I dedicated the book to was the one that assigned the assignment, and it was just basically the first chapter of book one. And my teacher left a note on my assignment to keep writing. So I was just, took that to heart because that's the person that I am. And I did. I kept writing. And the very first version of it was a poor retelling of Twilight, but with fae and dragons. I set it down for about 7 years and picked it back up when I was reading Zodiac Academy because I was like, you know what? I've read all these books in the last, year or so, and none of them really have what my book has. I think I need to bring it back. And so I went and I added an element, and that element was the relationship that she had with Caleb was more prominent. That alone made it that much better. But the ending was always the same. The ending of book one was always the same. And so when I was rewriting it, I kind of wrote that book in about 6 months when I rewrote it, and I changed stuff from the beginning, so it was basically a brand new book. But I am what you call a pantser. I can plan things to my day's end, and I will not follow it. I maybe will follow a couple different things. I could have 72 plot points, and maybe 3 of them will come to the actual book. So I just kind of write and listen to the characters. And if they say something that's unhinged, I'm like, you know what? No, I think you should maybe do this instead. And they're like, okay. Or they're like, no, trust me. I'm like, okay. So I kind of just follow characters' leads most of the time. I have an overall storyline for the entire series that I know is happening, but the plot points are pretty much just they happen when they happen.
And how many books are you shooting for this series?
I am aiming for 4 or 5. I have it'll depend on how book 4 goes. If I do a 5th one, there will be 5 absolutely because I'm doing a novella from a different point of view.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Are you hoping to explore slight spoilers for book 2, but you start introducing other POVs. Are you going to expand on that as the series continues?
Unknown. In book 2, it was necessary to have those to make that switch. I think there's 5 or 6 chapters from a different point of view, and I think that all of them were necessary to push the story forward.
Yes.
I don't know. I will continue to probably do that POV as well as Rayleigh's. I don't know if there will be more going forward.
Okay. Gotcha.
But we'll see.
We were talking about you being a pantser and everything. What are kind of some moments, I guess, with writing, right, that you almost wish maybe that you were more organized with, or if there are moments where you were throw the plan even more out the window?
I don't know if I think if I had to redo book 1, I think there would be some elements that I would go back and be like, okay, this is too much like this, or this is too corny. Because there are points where I'm like, I reread it and I'm like, oh, that was kind of corny. I should have wrote that differently. Or it's too similar to Twilight in some ways, and I'm like, that's true. I could have changed that. But I just didn't pay attention to that because it was the story that I was telling from the characters. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, it just makes sense. They're in high school. Of course,
Yeah,
some of
it's
this
their
stuff's going
age
to be corny.
range,
Yeah.
like being in
Yeah.
that age range, I was like, I see why she's making the decision she's making.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I started the book technically in high school, so I was like, it makes sense that these things are happening. When I rewrote it, I just kind of like tweaked it more so that you could tell it was an
Mhm.
adult writing it, but it
Mm-hmm.
was still based in a younger character's head because they're
Yeah.
17. It's like
Yeah.
there's no way that they could speak eloquently. Like there's a character in book 2 that speaks very
Mm-hmm.
eloquently that I'm like, how do I incorporate this because it's so different from what I've been writing. So I'm like, okay, I gotta figure out how he would say this versus Rayleigh because it's so very
Yeah.
different. He doesn't even use, what is it, the conjunctions. He doesn't use the words like don't
Mm-hmm.
or didn't. He said
Says the
he
whole thing.
spells
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
all out, and I'm like, yep. It was really hard for me to do,
Yeah. I think
but
like seeing your growth from, because obviously, I mean, like I was a fan of the first book
mhm,
since like I got the first arc, like you were one of the
yeah,
first like author experiences of like, oh, I can just like go into her DMs and yell at her really quick. And like that was pretty cool. And that's an experience that I think really added to the series because every time that something happened in book 2, which we're not getting into yet, I was like, oh, she's gonna hear about this. And that was really like fun because it added to that element
yeah,
of like interactiveness, which I think a lot of like independent authors can really lean into because they have that connection to their audience on like a regular basis because you need
mhm.
to.
Mhm.
When it comes to like the world building and the magic system and everything like that, what was kind of your thought process for how you were going to pull that together?
Oh, my mom once asked me, "How did you come up with all this?" I was like, "Honestly, I don't know. I just sat down and wrote it, and it all kind of fit together."
Mm-hmm.
Um, obviously, there's a lot. Every story has been told several different ways by several different people, and I'm like, it's okay that some of these elements are similar to other things, and like the magic system itself, I'm like, okay, I have two different species here. I've got the Fae and I've got the Dracolisan, and they have to have different magic. They just have to, and it's got to be different enough that it can't really relate in any sort of way. And so like when I went into it, I was like, well, what are some different powers that these people could have? And I went through it. Obviously the elements are easy, you have
Mm-hmm.
that. It's just how to wield it, and that's also
Mhm.
pretty easy to get through. But the other ones, I was just like, these are
Yeah.
harder. I don't know how I came up with them. I just remember sitting down one day and like writing out, okay, these are some different powers that are popular, and then there's some less popular ones. Like a lot of people don't like time powers.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, how do I, especially in the first book, it was more of like the stopping time that was big,
Yeah.
and it took a lot of their power because it's a lot to do. And
Right.
depending on how much of time that you stop,
Mm-hmm.
it takes more or less of your power. And then how do they recharge? Well, you got to figure that out too. And I'm like, well, so, in their home world, Nikodra, they had to have some way to have those, and it made sense that, they had these caves where they were recharged, and like I can't really get into that much without much spoilers, but it's one of those things that the way that the world works, the sun goes over those parts of the
Yeah, they're all solar powered.
planet. Yes, exactly. Basically, that's how the crystals get charged is by the sun.
Yeah.
So it made sense to have that, but they can't be too much in the sun and they can't be too much in the dark. So they had to get like the rotation in, and that's why it works the way that it does.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when authors create a magic system, but then they also create or they pay attention to, I guess, what would be like common sense of magic usage of like, them bringing a cup to their hand is not going to take as much energy from them as them
Right.
doing these other things. And I like when time is taken to be like, these people are able to do these magical things, but they, have they're a cup. Like if that cup is empty, they're empty. And I like when that gets incorporated. Um, what's your favorite part about writing the characters?
When they yell at me.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I was writing book 2, for the POV switch, I was writing and I had this thought that I should like write from that POV so I knew what was happening, but not put it in the published version. And I got closer and closer to that midway point in the book, and he just started yelling. Like, yo, it's my turn to talk. I need something. I need to say something. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we'll just write that out and you can say it. Nope, it needs to go in the book. I was like, no, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is a one perspective book. He's like, nope, it needs to go in. I promise. I was like, and this is like the part of being a pantser that's fun because you don't know what they're going to say sometimes. And
Mhm.
like, obviously, that first POV switch, so much is said. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess it makes sense that you had to say something now.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think, I mean, it's not only, you know, that character that yells at me, but it's other characters as well. Like, we introduced somebody new in this next book who's very prominent in the story. And they were like, when they are first introduced in the book, I'm like, yeah, they're just part of this group, right? No, he also came, he's like, I have more in this story. I'm more prominent in this. I was like, why though? Why? And then that chapter POV switch happened and you get their conversation. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? So it does. They surprise me a lot when they yell at me to say certain things or when they're going a certain direction. I was like, where are you going with this? This better not be where I think you're going. And then it is. And I'm like, what did I just write? And then I have to go back and read it and make sure that it makes sense because I'm like, that came out of nowhere, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Love
I
when
had
it
a question.
fits.
yeah.
I had a question as you were saying that. I was like, "Oh," and then it made me think of something. And then, oh, when reading your books, right? What is kind of the like feeling that you want your readers to have as you're reading it? If that makes sense. Like, what is something that you want them to feel in these, you know, when they start the first book, right? What do you want them to feel? We if you've read the first book, listeners, you know what she probably wanted you to feel for the ending, so we're not going to ask that question. But then as we get into like the second book, what is kind of like the feelings without talking spoilers or anything that you hope kind of stick with your readers as they're reading it?
I think the most that happens, I mean, like, obviously there's some, you know, anxiety with Rayleigh, and I want characters to understand that, like, you know, there is character growth, and then there are actual real life scenarios where, like, for example, there's a point in this story where she's been working towards her like being able to get over anxiety attacks on her own, and then there's a point where she just can't do it and her coping methods aren't working. And those are real life moments because as much as you work towards like getting through things on your own, it doesn't always work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you could work as hard as you want and then you get to that point where it's really really bad and it just doesn't work for you. But I want them to feel like these characters are relatable even though it's fantasy. You know, you're in a different realm. There's magic. There's things that don't
Mm-hmm.
exist in the real world. But I want them to feel like they can relate to these characters in certain things that they're doing. I also also want them to just not know what's going on most of the time. Like they're confused. The characters are confused that they're reading the perspective from until, you know, it's revealed like, "Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
That makes sense." Um but like I live for the shock and awe of certain like plot twists or points or things that happen. Obviously, you can see that in book 2. There's a lot of those where it's just like it's surprise, but it's makes sense. So I don't want them to feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's out of the blue because it never should be. I drop enough hints for multiple different things that nothing that I've put in the book should be a total and complete
Yeah.
Yeah.
surprise, if that makes sense. But I also want them to feel comforted by the characters and to relate to them. So it's like both of those things. Be confused, but also
Yeah,
relate to
that's
them in
fair.
those
I
moments.
remember like I had just spoken to Kayla about how I really enjoy that both of your books give very thorough like breadcrumbs if you're like paying attention.
Right.
So they're books that if you're like actively engaging in them and just like paying attention to things as they're going. When things later on happen, right, you're still able to feel that like surprise, and the moment still hits, right? But you're like, oh, this now makes sense. Hindsight is 2020. I really like that, because I think a lot of authors also put in a lot of like shock moments, and they're just kind of dropped in and they don't really make sense for the plot. And so I did really appreciate that. Kayla, did you have any non-spoiler questions before we start going into the nitty-gritty?
Who are some authors that really inspired you, like when sitting down and writing the series? I mean, you've mentioned Twilight. Have there been any others that have really sort of helped you in this journey?
I feel like every book that I read, the author has been some sort of like inspiration, just simply because they wrote the book.
Right.
And they, you know, came up with this whole system on their own, and it's very inspiring just to see even like other independent authors do the same and come up with their own worlds. I think it's more so just like there's no specific book that inspired this aside from maybe Twilight and the Vampire Diaries. I read both of those in high school and they were very popular, and I was like, but I don't want to write a vampire book because I just those are overrated and at the time, you know, there was just too many of them.
Right.
And I mean, now there's just too many of the Fae and the dragons, but it's like, you know, it's just everybody's writing books now. It's fine.
Right.
So I was like, I was reading Zodiac Academy. I was like, well, there's a dragon in that one that is a shifter, and I'm like, there's not enough of these. I need more. And, you know, I mean, I already had that in my first version of my book, so when I picked it back up again, I just tweaked a lot of the story, but that was still there. I don't know if there's any specific books other than, I mean, like, Damon is a huge inspiration for Kyler. If you didn't know that, I love Damon with all of my heart. I'm rewatching The Vampire Diaries with a friend, and every time I see him, I'm like,
yeah, the blueprint is there.
Yeah.
The vision was there. I saw what you were putting down.
Yep. So it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different things, but I don't feel like there was just one other than those that are like have since inspired me. Like with Forbidden Fusion, I don't think I read anything that made me do any of the things that I did in that one. It was just the characters took the lead and we're just on our own now, in our own path. There are still similarities, but I feel like, I mean, the people that have read it, they're like, I haven't read a story that has this type of like plot to it. I'm like, that's good, right?
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, that's that.
I like that. I think it also really shows, I think every author, you can tell a lot by what was popular when they were growing up, because the authors will enhance what they were already exposed to, but then they'll also, you know, that I think is why we have a lot more like fae and dragons and stuff now, is because we didn't when we were younger, when we were reading these books.
Right.
Like the craze in like the 2000s for like the Nephilim and fallen angels, right? Like it just kind of exists. Going into the nitty-gritty now, right? So listeners, skedaddle.
Spoiler alert.
You haven't read the book. All right. I've been waiting a year. I've been waiting a year.
Like to the day, right?
To the day. I was just looking. Looking at Goodreads actually, and I had read Forbidden Flare from April 15th till April 19th of 2024. And I just read it all today. So yeah, I know at some point I'm gonna have to reread it, because I definitely was just like devouring the thing because I had been waiting for it for a year to get all my answers.
Did you get answers?
Okay.
Did you get what you wanted?
No and yes. So we get at the ending, right? We obviously have Caleb is a prick, right?
Truly.
And we find out that there's more going on, right? She is dealt a fatal betrayal blow So I had to wait a year to figure out how she was going to. No, not even. I had to wait a year to see how the rest of the book was going to go because you then posted that first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mean. But then so we end up having this whole thing with Caleb, right? And what's so interesting about him is the fact that like he doesn't get better in this book, right? I think a lot of authors really jump the gun if they're trying for, and not saying you are, but if they're trying for any sort of like redemption arc or anything like that, a lot of them like really try that so quickly to be like, oh, I got really nervous in the one scene where he like shows up at the room and he's like talking to her and stuff. And I was like, I swear to God, if this walks away with her being like, I think he didn't mean it, I'll be like, he had to have meant it. It was like 18 years, bro. Like, no one fakes it for 18 years. Okay. So we find out that he's a prick, right? We then are thinking like Kyler is going to be great. And then the first time we see Kyler, he seemingly has some sort of girlfriend. And like that girlfriend is the worst.
She's kind of cool. Like she's not that bad. She comes off bad. She comes off like a badass. But
she's the worst.
She's kind of
you know, like the only time that she becomes somebody that I think I like is towards that kind of ending, not ending, but like the last like half of the book where you start getting more in like understanding of, okay, her and who we actually find out is Nico are betrothed, but they don't seem to actually view each other in like a romantic light. It just seems to be something that they've got like set up, which we don't get a lot of information about that, by the way. Thanks for that. It's cool. But they have this whole like thing, right? Because when she gets introduced, it seems very like, oh, they're together. Because she just like kisses him on the mouth. And he's like, yeah, this is completely normal. Cool. And then the king is like, if you want to continue to share a bed. I was like, bro, what are we doing here? I was like, you didn't just have me go through an entire book of this man pining for there to be a lady in his bed. Anywho. So then once we start getting that like information from her or about her and stuff like that, I think is when I start really liking her because she also doesn't get a lot of screen time leading up to that other than moments with, you know, Nico and stuff. Okay. So we've got that going on. Mm-hmm. Caleb, who I don't know how to pronounce his actual name.
Talicor.
Mr. Tally over there is still the worst. And he is attempting but failing to like gaslight everybody around him. Oh, which I love to see from like the outside perspective because he's like, I'm so sneaky, I'm so good, I'm so conniving, and everyone is looking at him like, dude, we're like aware you're the villain here. All of us know you're the worst. So all of his scenes were really fun because I just loathe him entirely. Mm-hmm. And like having been like a Kyler girly from book 1, you know, I was like, this is what I'm here for. This was what I signed up for. We get the king and the queen, right? Who the king sucks, but he sucks in like he's a king, so what do you expect kind of way. Right. Very few times do we get a king in any sort of fantasy book where you like them. Right. You know, because if they were doing well, you wouldn't have whatever rebellion or whatever system change is about to happen. I like the queen a lot. She seems cool. Don't get a lot from her. I like the fact that she's very aware. Like she does, I think, what a lot of maybe like women in fantasy books tend to do, where if they know that they can't be super like blunt and outright with their decisions or kind of their like meddling, she does it in kind of like underhanded ways to like do her best to help. So I did like that. What I guess the better question is, who has hurt you?
You know, the funniest thing is I can't tell you like who specifically made me this, because in real life, the people who know me and have read these books, they're like, "Are you okay?" Because like you're really mean. I was like, well, listen, I can only be mean as an author because I don't have it in me to be mean in real life. It is not my I wish I could sometimes because I need to draw more boundaries than I do.
Yeah.
But I am not a mean person, and I don't have the heart to be mean to literally anybody.
When you open up a book.
So I wrote a book, and I can be mean in the book because I can be 12 different characters, and I can be mean in every single one of them, or I can be nice, or I could be Oliver and be the sweetest human on earth, you know?
Yeah.
Or not even human, but you know what I mean. It's just like, I can have all of these personalities just come to life and get to step into the shoes of all of those characters. It was really hard to step into the shoes of the king when he was killing his own son. That was really hard.
Yeah.
Rough.
I had to take a mental, like, 3-day break from writing because I was like, oh man, that one hurt really bad.
Yeah.
Like, just hurt my heart, hurt my head, and I was just like, how did I get to this mental headspace where I could do that? You know?
Yeah. Because I think what made that scene hard over just the obviously like suckiness of the entire thing is the fact that he himself did it. I think like a lot of kings, especially in fantasy books or fictional books, right? If they have their son killed, right?
They have somebody else do it.
They have somebody else do it, right? If we look at even like Hamlet and Shakespeare, which I'm not going to nerd out very much because Kayla don't like the classics and it's fine.
I don't mind Shakespeare.
But like within like Hamlet, right? You have this whole idea that Hamlet needs to be moided. But his uncle like refuses to do it with his own hand and like all of these things. So the king is always viewed as this bad guy, right? But he hit like a whole new level when you see him actually like do it, which like made me hate him.
Use his magic.
Yeah, made me hate him, but no, respect is the wrong word, right? But I was like, okay, at least people know like you're the one getting your hands dirty. You know, like you're the one actually doing the thing as opposed to getting somebody else to do it. But that 100% has to be the reason the queen is the way that she is. Because she knows that if she steps out of line, he was willing to kill an heir, bro. But so we end up getting all of these moving parts, right? Rayleigh is put into such a like terrible situation because literally everybody in the world around her, she obviously has the trust issues now from, you know, everything. Tally and his fuckery. But then you also end up having it to where like Nico ends up taking a very like, I'm going to keep this girl alive, but that means that she can never actually know the bigger plot of things. And that's so frustrating. And I love one of my favorite scenes in this is literally when his dragon is like talking to him and is like, bro, like you could literally just communicate with her how you're feeling. And like, she would probably listen to you. You know, like she wouldn't be calling me out when she's stressed out.
I was gonna defend him, and then I was like, no,
defend him, defend the man. Who else is?
Because I was thinking, you know, well, Nico can't do much of anything because Rayleigh doesn't have like it's. There's no filter. Her brain is just out there for everybody to listen to. But then I'm like,
what teenage girl is different? What teenage girl?
He could just teach her.
Yeah, that's like, and that's kind of the whole thing, I think, is like, he's like, I can't tell her anything because no one can look in his brain, look into her, like, everyone can just see what she's got going on, and then everyone around her is like, bro, like, there's like a simple solution to that. Like, you could just teach her to not have people in her brain.
And then he does.
But he's so cool because I clocked him, like, book 1 of, like, he is not what he is, like, portraying. Like he's got his own damage, right? And then we meet the king and then his damage starts making sense. Then we meet Oliver.
Love Oliver.
Who I love Oliver. So really, Kayla and I both have a question for you, but I'm going to ask it because I've got no issues asking it. How you feel about polyamory?
How do you feel about why choose? Like, where are we at? Yay, nay?
You would be not surprised at how many. I think every single person that has read the book has asked me,
Right
why
there.
would you do this to me? First of all. Second of all, how do you feel about not making it a choice?
Yeah.
I was like,
Listen, I don't speak for the characters, but we can pretend I do. Like, that could still be killer because now you got two really great men trying to kill Caleb. I'm down. I'm so down.
listen, I love them both, and I'm at that point where I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen because I'm a pantser. I have an idea, and I have like a way that I think
You know,
it's
starts
going
with a
to go.
P.
But
Polyamory.
but I don't know, the paths that are going to unfold because, as you can clearly tell from this book, I'm not afraid to kill somebody.
Right.
So it's one of those.
Why would you bring that up to me when I've been so nice to you?
Because I'm an author. Remember, authors can be mean. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I have a certain way that I think it will go. But I don't know that it will end up that way. And I now have more reason to not understand if it's going to go that way or not.
Listeners, that means she's not a fan of white Jews. Listeners.
I just don't think that I could write that. I just don't think that I'm the person to write that. I could read it. I just don't think I'm going to write it.
Listeners.
So you can all choose who you want. I don't know who it's going to be yet.
I will start a petition. It'll be in the link down below. And it'll also be dropped in the Discord. All right? We can band together. She is only one lady. Okay, so then we end up meeting Ellie, right? Love her. She's great. We get to see a really sweet moment with her and Theo, which I also love because I love Theo so much in the fact that he's such a nerd. And then we find out that at one point was like the highest ranking person next to the king.
Looks like a cinnamon roll.
Will kill you. I guess like within this book, now that we can go a little bit more into like the spoilers and the nitty gritty and everything, is like, what was your favorite scene to write? And do you have a least favorite?
I think I cried the most writing that scene.
No, say it with your chest. You wrote it with your chest. You gotta say it with your chest.
I didn't, though. I didn't write it with my chest. I wrote it with tears in my eyes. Even every editing session, every time I re-went through that chapter, I cried. I literally had the hardest time making Leighton kill her sister. I can't.
You can't tell me that Leighton, the character, was screaming at you to make this happen.
No, she wasn't. Caleb was. Talakor, it was him. And I was like, bro, you're nuts. You're so...
Get him some Lexapro.
He promised in chapter 16 that he was going to break her.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean...
And he did.
At least he's consistent
in more ways
about
than
it,
one.
you know?
I guess.
And that was the hardest scene for me to write. While the mentally stepping into the king's shoes was hard because he was the way that he did that was mentally, like, I don't know how I got there. I did cry in that one, but not as much as I cried writing that scene with Leighton.
Yeah. Just the fact that, like, Kendall was so understanding of it was really important for, like, everybody involved, you know? Like, everybody in the scene and all the audience members. Yep. Like, it was incredibly important for us to know that she did not get murdered and blame her sister.
Right.
No.
You know? Like, that was nice. Appreciated that touch. That was all I appreciated from that scene. But, like, kudos to you for that one.
Yeah.
Man, we see a lot more of, is it Mari? Yeah, we see a lot more of her in this book. I was really nervous that we weren't going to be able to trust her. I think everybody was there at the same time, you know? And then we like see more of her, and then we have you tried to kill her too, but I remembered what Oliver had said.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you remembered.
Because I was like,
some people haven't remembered.
Because I was like, hey. Well, I think it helped in the fact that I literally did not leave my bed for like the 4 hours it took me to read this book. Like Kayla had started it earlier this week, and I was like, oh crap, like I need to like lock in and really just read this book. So I started it, and then like a couple hours later texted her, and I was like, I'm on this page, and she was like, you're a fucking psychopath. I'm like 20 pages ahead of you, and she had started it like earlier this week, and I was like, it's been a year. It's gonna be another year. Like oh my god. But yeah, so I had definitely remembered it because it was still so fresh in my brain. Because I think like, especially when you are reading a series, right? You can kind of get used to an author's, not like tells, but you can kind of just tell like what their MO is going to be, right? So I was like, gotta find the breadcrumbs, gotta pay attention to the breadcrumbs. She's not going to catch me again. Lacking at the end.
Did I?
No, actually. Because, and the only reason you didn't was go. One, I was like, we're getting too much screen time with this dragon that was not chosen. I was like, he's gonna come, Lucas. I was like, he's gonna come back at some point, because no way did she just have this sweet moment with this dragon for us to never see this dragon again. And then second, we knew, or well, I knew because I pay attention, that Oliver knew what was going on with her parents. So then when Oliver decided to be a little shady and talk to these two random people, and he was like, I can't tell you who they are, I'm just sending them to my cousin's house, no biggie, don't ask me questions. And I was like, hey, buddy.
He actually had very good reasons for what he did.
I was like, hey, buddy. Tally's a lot of things, but he's kind of observant. And if he says that this lady looks like... And then I was like, okay, I see what you're doing there. So I put it to the side, I put a little pin in it. Kept it moving. Then at the end, I was like, yeah, I know who the hosts are. Come out the curtains, bitch. Come out. And then, yeah, so you did not catch me lacking this time, but that's because you've traumatized me the first time.
But we do remember that her dad was listed as Ignalian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah.
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 Which means a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Which means a lot of other things. Okay. Have you even started writing book 3? Yeah. I knew you were going to say that to me.
Nope, I sure haven't. I have been bamboozled with a bunch of other things.
Yeah, you've been living a busy life. All right.
I do know.
Are you planning on keeping to theme of April, me being able to read it next April? Can I log it
in? Most likely. I'm not sure exactly how. I mean, I feel like if I have the time, I can write. Yeah. But it's like one of those things where, like, to be completely honest with you, I wrote the majority of this book. Like, I think I started on 12 or 13 in November.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished this book by February 17th. So that's 35-ish chapters that I wrote in 3.5 months.
Math, I don't know, months.
And it's one of those things where, like, when I have a deadline, I will do it. I wrote 24 chapters in January and February. So it's one of those things where if I have a deadline, I wait till the last second.
I'm giving you a deadline. Me.
I have to give it to myself.
We now have a tradition. You cannot break tradition. I've got 2 books.
The thing is, I might try to write it sooner. Who knows? Because I'll have more time. I only have 1 job now instead of 3. I don't live in a city where it takes me an hour and a half to drive somewhere. And I have all the time in the world to do what I want to do. And so I can focus on writing book 3.
So adding extra pressure, if you give me book 3 earlier, that means I'm still reading something in April.
Yes.
Don't shoot yourself in the foot
I
and give
thought
me
you were
something in
going-
December.
I thought you were going for like, my birthday's in October.
You know what? My
Wink,
birthday.
wink, nudge,
Listen,
nudge.
and making it really easy. My birthday's the last day of October, so all I'm saying.
You never know. You never know.
Um.
We'll see where life takes us.
Okay. So this book obviously goes on a bunch of twists. We get a lot of world building. We get like a really cute, like, I forgot the name of it, where their hideout.
The Verdant
Yeah, that was
The
so
Verdant- the Verdant
cute.
Vale.
Okay,
Yeah.
seeing that they just had this place that was seemingly supposed to be safe for them, and you know that they've been going to it for like a really long time.
Are we?
Did you like the date at the end?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yep. Didn't hurt.
Did you like
me.
how Kyler was like, I'm not gonna stand in your way?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, I never answered my favorite scene to write. I think, but there was two. They both involve Nico.
As they
First
should.
one was outside the disappearing door handle
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah.
That
Her
one.
and Cleo were so cute there because Cleo's like also not used to people talking to her.
But also, like, they're both drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, writing those scenes was so much fun because I was like, how do I make this so that, like, it's still them, but they are not hiding as much as they
They're being
have
like
been.
more honest with themselves because everybody else can see it. It's just a matter of y'all gonna talk about it.
Yeah. And then the second one was when he's teaching her to put up the walls. And he goes diabolical and tries to distract her long enough to get into her mind. And she's like, well, that's never happening again.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So those two scenes, there's a video of me writing the second one, editing the second one that I mentioned. I'm giggling the entire time.
Yeah, it was really good. I like the fact that Kyler is very like, I'm not gonna get out of his way. But if like you want the option, I'll get out of your way, I guess.
Yeah.
I love me a like borderline arrogant fictional man. Don't like arrogance in my real life. But this whole thing, especially like throughout the book where he's able to listen to her conversations, and anytime somebody's like, oh, like, what's so good about him? And he's like, actually, everything is good about me. I'm the greatest. And I like the idea of her having that inner voice as like everybody around her is like, you are in a pickle. You are in a bad situation because you are tied to this man. And she's like, actually, I don't mind it all that much. You know, she's just not aware she doesn't mind it until like the end. This book was a lot longer than the first one. Was that intimidating to write?
I got to a certain point when I was writing that I was like, ooh, this has a lot more to say, and I don't think I'm going to get it into the size of book one. It's almost 20K longer in words, which is about 100 pages. Yeah, just short of it. Listen, I had a meltdown writing book one because as I was writing it, I was at like 140K words, and I saw a post that like, your first fantasy novel shouldn't be more than 120, and I was like,
those people, they just don't know how to read.
I legit like was like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? I have to stop writing. I have to go back and change everything. And I had a literal meltdown. Did not write anything for 3.5 weeks. And I was like, and then one of my friends, who is the inspiration for Theo,
nice,
told me, and he's like, well, what does making it longer than that do? I was like, well, it tells more of the story. He's like, okay, well, is it important? I was like, well, yeah. He's like, well, then why wouldn't they read it? I was like,
yep.
That's a good point. If they want to read the book, they'll read the book, no matter how long it is. And so once I got past that point, I wrote the entire ending went back, scrapped it all, and rewrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Because originally I had them going to prom in the first book, and he was taken from prom.
I think I would have socked him in the face. I think I would have socked him in the face if he ruined such a quintessential teenage memory for her.
Bro, when he says that in this book, when he's just like, I was looking forward to being captured from prom.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, what?
Yeah.
What? Ugh.
No, but yeah, I think also watching your like growth as an author is really good. You seemed a lot more comfortable in this one. Which was nice because I think writing is obviously incredibly difficult as it is, but I do have a really fun time watching people's skills and kind of comfort and voice and everything change as they're, getting a lot more practice in and stuff, which is why it's incredibly important, listeners, to support all authors that you enjoy, but especially as their series are like still coming out. Because there's too many people that are like, I'm not reading the series until it's completely done. And I'm like, okay, but like, how are you going to get it to be completely done?
Yeah, if you don't read it.
If you don't read it and show the people the numbers that they want it. I'm like, at the very least, like, buy the book, download the book off of Kindle Unlimited or, all of these different platforms, like, show the numbers and then, like, mind your business until the next one comes out if that's what you're really wanting to do,
Right.
But no, I think I got my yell in.
You did.
It was cathartic.
Listeners,
I really recommend bombarding your authors' DMs with questions.
Do not bombard your authors' DMs with questions, dear listeners.
Go into their DMs.
I love it. Personally, I love it. Please, if you DM, like, I didn't get anything from anybody until, like, I don't know, I haven't gotten hardly anything from anybody, but, like, the people who know me, like, actually have my phone number, are like, I'm starting it this weekend, prepare. And I was like, all right, bet.
Yeah. I DM'd her immediately, listeners, and was like, I just finished it. I have questions. Good to see you later.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not even going to bother doing it here.
Yeah.
But this would be the normal part of the episode where you can share anything you've got going on. By the time this episode comes out, the book should be out, but you can still talk about that and promote yourself.
Okay. Well, I have a question. Do you guys have... Okay, take out the main three. Who's your favorite character?
Oliver.
Take out the main three. Take out the main three. Yeah. Not Oliver, not Nico, not Rayleigh.
All right.
Ooh. I'm a Theo. I'm a Theo girly. If it's gonna be any of the ones, I'm a Theo girly. Ellie almost had me.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna have to be Mitch for me.
Oh, my poor baby.
Little monster boy Mitch.
Little baby monster.
Yeah.
Little monster, Mitch. Little monster.
Yeah, little baby monster. Yeah, I think Theo's my favorite because I like when authors bring characters back into the second book. Like, that feels like such a common sense decision to make.
Yeah.
But I like when they're in the second book and they're still important.
Yeah.
Unless obviously the series are like a interconnected standalones, right?
Yeah.
Your character should still exist.
Yeah. And that's really hard to do in this book specifically because she is basically enslaved.
Yeah.
To Nico. And so she can't, go see these other people on her own and it's like, so it's like, how do I bring them to her in these situations? And so, like, obviously Theo rescues her from Aiden again, son of a bitch.
Yeah. That guy sucks.
Really.
I didn't even spend time talking about him because he's just not worth it.
Oh, but he's back. He's out of the cave.
Yeah, he's a bad rash.
Oh, anyways, that was difficult to bring all those in. And then my other question is, do you have any theories going forward?
Well, now that I know it's going to be like 4 books, no.
What did you think? It was going to end in book 3?
You know what? I couldn't even remember what we had talked about. And I don't look at anything for like the next book of a series ever.
Okay.
Like I avoid, like I've been liking your TikToks, but not watching them because I'm like, oh, support, but I can't.
Right.
Because I don't like going into anything with like preconceptions. I'm the same way with like movie trailers.
Yeah, I don't watch movie trailers. I don't read the back of books.
I can't do it. So I was like, oh, like, is it a duology? I was really walking into it blind because I was like, I don't know how much story there is.
Yeah.
And then we got to the last like 10 pages because I was looking to make sure I had enough time to finish it. And I'm like, okay, there it says like 734 on my phone. Like, that's cool. And I got to like 725 and I was like, wait. There's a lot of empty boxes here. So my thing, and I will go down on record, is unless something egregious happens, I am still a Nico girly. You know, like his possessiveness went a little far this book at times. I really wanted to just flick him on the forehead, but I think it's also fair with like the situation he's in because it's not possession for the sake of possession. It's also like every time she's out of my sight, something bad happens.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood where he was coming from, but there were a couple points where I wanted to like spray him with water.
Yep. And anybody could have claimed her. So
yeah, like I get it. Still a Kyler girly as of right now. I would not be upset if Oliver wins out. I think the only option that I would genuinely be upset with is if we try to pull a like Snape situation in here where like Caleb gets redeemed at some point and suddenly everyone forgets all of these terrible things. I think Rayleigh's parents are going to be dope. I don't like the face you just made, but I think they're going to be dope.
That was still on the Caleb thing. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I think Girly deserves a good relationship with her parents. I think she deserves some adults that aren't viewing her as like some sort of like prize to be won and just kind of are like, this is our kid. You know, like it'd be cool if we had like a Rapunzel moment where it did not matter to her parents that she had all these magical whatevers, but like that's just their kid. I don't think I've sat down enough to really think about my long-term theories.
Yeah.
Because now I'm going to have to really let it marinate.
Well, yeah,
maybe
ending,
read it again.
The ending gives you a lot of possibilities. So.
Yeah. And then I'll just pop back into a DM.
Yep.
And be like, all right, I got a bullet point list for you now.
Hey, I'm not against it.
Yeah.
What about you, Kayla? Anything?
I think the queen is going to betray the king in some capacity. Don't know.
I want her to go full on Mama Bear. Like, I'm so sick and tired.
No, I don't think she'll do that. But I think she'll do something.
I
think she'll do something. Or she's already, like, doing something on the DL that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Which feels more appropriate. She was giving me vibes.
Also, this goes without saying, but, like, just in case because I got trust issues, I don't want any Luke and Leia moments. Right? Where, like, they don't realize that there's some sort of familial connection here.
You mean with Nico and Ray? No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Because, like, I got trust issues, you know? And so the moment that, like, parents that were supposed to be dead come back around, I'm like, wait. Anything. I don't want them to be cousins. I don't want them to... Nothing.
Yep.
If there's one thing you listen to me with.
No, trust me. I have had that thought multiple times. I'm like, this is not happening. It will not happen.
Yeah.
I will not allow it.
Yeah.
So no, they're not related. Trust me.
Nice.
You can rest at ease.
Yeah, for that part at least.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to do my plugs because I asked you questions.
No, it's okay. This could be we can move.
Be the plugs.
We move things around. We chilling.
I mean, I just have my website, which is kelseyleign.com.
Mhm.
And then I have, I don't even know what it's called. Dancers and Dreamers, maybe? Which is the Fantastique Collections event next March in Texas.
Mhm.
I think it's Dallas.
Yeehaw.
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 I do have Shadows and Soiree coming up, but I feel like that's gonna happen before this comes out. But other than that, keep an eye on socials for title announcements and book cover
Yeah.
reveals.
You'll see me there, not interacting with it and looking, but you'll see me.
Interacting, just not looking. Yep.
Yeah.
I do have titles planned for the next two, and I have covers planned. And I do have a novella planned, which is going to be from two perspectives of Leighton and Mari.
Mm.
So it'll be a little different because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In this book specifically, but also in book one that we don't see. And so there's going to be some information in that as well that'll be it won't be as long because it's just a novella, but it will be informational.
That's good.
Which will be fun. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's all I think I have.
Yeah. You killed it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, listeners, all of those links and everything will be down below for you to check out. If you have not read the Sunshine Chronicles, you definitely should. There's 2 books as of right now. Go bug her on her socials when you finish the books. I'm sure. Tell her I sent you. It'll be fine.
After, during, before, whatever.
Yeah.
Do it all.
Do it. Been there, done that. It's fun. It's incredibly cathartic. But this has been another episode of Margin Mavens, and we will see you in the next one. Bam.